Because you would have to go over there and visit sometimes. Is that correct?
More times than I care to count.
Mm.
There are stories in which she would literally run out of money and get kicked out, and I literally, on more than one night, multiple nights, would have to sleep in the gutter, Holly, in the gutter on the street. It's very, very difficult to recall those memories because cops would roll by and not see us, because she would always throw a blanket over all three of us, and she would shoot up, and all I would see is this needle and blood spurting out of veins. That's all I remember. And it's, oh my goodness.
Well, you know that God has a special place for all of us, and He loves you so much. And your biological mother was taken over by the spirit of addictions. And it's sad when people choose not to break those addictions, because there's so many tools out there available to all of us, to everyone out there. If you're struggling with addictions, there are many, many tools out there. And, just Jesus died on the cross for all of us. He died for our sins, and we can just lay it on the cross. There are tools given to us. There are meetings. There are AA meetings. There's so many different things now that people can use. Of course, AA was available to James's mother back then, because AA has been around a long time.
Yeah, but she chose not.
She chose not to. There are chronic relapsers that choose not to, or there are people that just don't even get sober. They just choose to continue to use.
She never got sober. She never did. In fact, the ironic thing is, she's in Oceanside right now with her drug dealer boyfriend. Still high, still selling dope, still alive. While everyone that I care about, my mom, my grandmother, my grandfather, my biological father, are all dead. And while I was not remorseful or was so concerned with my biological father because he didn't want anything to do with me, period. He's just a sperm donor to me. He even passed away in 2018. So she's still alive with her drug dealer boyfriend, and everyone around me is dead.
Well, maybe one day she'll turn her life around. We can pray for that. Now, James, was your grandmother a praying woman? Did she give you the faith? Explain that to me, because your faith has gotten you through this. I don't know that you had it in the beginning. Let me know about that, how this came about.
That's funny you say that, because when I was in the hospital, I spent the first almost 11 months in the incubator. I never got to be held or touched. But from stories that my grandmother told me, she would sit by my bed and read the book of Romans and sing Amazing Grace over and over and over and over again. And I don't know how she knew how to do it, because she didn't grow up in church. She grew up in a house doing adult things at a very young age. She's a housemaker. And she just found a Bible one day by herself. She had no idea how she found it, and just started reading the book of Romans, and just sang Amazing Grace over and over and over until I was released from hospital. About almost, I was a year and a half before I was released from the hospital.
Wow, a year and a half old?
Yes, I was a year and a half old.
Goodness. And obviously your your grandmother and grandfather are the ones that were there for you at the hospital.
Yeah, they took me home. I was taken from the incubator that I lived in, and I was sent home with them because my biological mother went out on the streets and got high, and so my grandmother, my mother, didn't want me to go into the foster care system, so I was taken home, and then in '86, my second oldest sister was born. In '87, my youngest sister was born. So my biological mother got high and pregnant 2 more times in successive years while I was being taken care of and put in the hospital over and over while trying to figure out what cerebral palsy ended up being. So while and not wanting to have happen to my sisters what would eventually happen to any other child being put in foster care. I mean, my grandmother and my grandfather took us all 3 in, and we lived with them until I stayed with them the longest, but when my sisters turned adult ages, they went on and lived their separate lives. And there's a lot of story behind that as well, but that's not my story to tell. So for me, I lived with both of them till they, my grandfather passed away when I was 12, and like I said, my grandmother passed away in 2015. So I was the longest and stayed with them.
How, and just explain to me how you got close to the Lord, how that came about.
I'd have to thank my grandfather for that because he was going through a lot and he needed something. And so he packed me up in a car and he got his van back and he packed me up and we just went down Fruitvale Avenue one day and we found this church called Fruitvale Community Church. It was a small church, and we listened to a sermon by a senior pastor by the name of Milt Cole. It turns out that church would become River Lakes Community Church over in my town, in Bakersfield, and that's literally where my father found the Lord. That's literally where he got baptized, and he went every Sunday as often as he could, and he would sit in the back and just listen. And after, he would drop me off at home and go get drunk. If that's as blunt as I can put it, because he didn't want to relive the sermon and or the scars that were coming up because of the sermon. So he did that. It was 3 years, 4 years straight. He brought my mom the Bible that he was reading, and he would just sit out in the garage and read and listen to Rush Limbaugh and drink. That was his entire existence outside of the military.
So that led you to the Lord. That led you to Christ, correct? Is that when you accepted Jesus in your heart?
Yes, I was very naive and I was very childish in my path
Mm-hmm.
because I was very, very young and I didn't know what I was doing. So I tried my best. I I messed up. I mess up every day. Um, but yeah, in my own way, I thought I was following God, and I did to the best of my ability until I got baptized Father's Day of 2015. Oddly enough, a couple months prior to my mother passing, I finally got baptized in 2015.
Okay, so let's move forward to the adult James. So I know your growing up was not a common growing up for people, and I'm really sorry you went through that, but it's certainly you've become a wonderful human being, and you've got such an amazing testimony that can help other people that are going through so many things. And you um you wanted to start a street ministry, or you became part of a street ministry. Enlighten me on that. I also think you were involved in a Christian motorcycle club at one time where you were trying to spread the word. Can you expound on that a little?
Honestly, and this is how you and I met originally. I was in the middle of a phase. I was tired of normal church work, giving out, because we had a street ministry inside of River Lakes Community Church, but it wasn't big enough. I wanted to do more. One day in 2013, we had a church meeting, and I saw this burly gentleman. He had this amazing patch on his back. And I asked him about it, and he invited me down to a street ministry, uh, which turned out to be a Christian motorcycle club, like as you stated. And I joined in 2013. I hung around starting in 2013, I should say, and just became engrossed in helping with bus ministries, giving out food and water and testimony and Bibles and condoms and things like that, to the street individuals that walked in front of our church every day. It was fulfilling and a great period in my life. I finally became a full member of this motorcycle ministry in 2016, and after much trial and tribulation, it it fizzled out, and I continued to do street ministry where I went to church in my own way. But street ministry really helped me and really hit me, and I have a lot of genuine women and a lot of genuine gentlemen that I'm still in contact with as we speak, and I help where I can when I can with the talents that God has given me.
Now, speaking of talents, I'm glad you brought that up because you were attending a school, and I believe it was in Bakersfield or somewhere near there. I'm not exactly sure, but it was owned by John Travolta's brother, Joey, and
Yes, ma'am.
it's a it's a editing school, or it's more than editing. Tell us.
It's a lot more than editing. It's a private little movie house. So what it is a school, but it's a movie house. We have a small building, and we've since moved, or they have since moved. In 2016, I was fortunate and blessed enough to be connected with Mr. Joey Travolta, and I give him all the credit in the world. for expanding my education and allowing me to learn. Excuse me, my phone fell.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
You'll have to edit that out.
Yeah.
Can you see me now?
Yes. Yes.
So I don't know where to start, but I'll start again.
Okay.
Into